Steph Curry just walked into the building of the second best defensive team in the NBA and walked out with the most efficient 56-point game in NBA history. This was the fourth highest scoring performance of his career, and the way he and the Warriors adjusted to all sorts of different coverages really highlights how game-breaking his skill set truly is. It's no secret that a lot of Steph's offense comes off of screens, and in the high pick and roll with Draymond, the Magic played it in a hedge to get the ball out of Steph's hands, then they relied on rotations behind the play to clean up in the paint. They can get away with that because the Warriors often have multiple non-shooters on the floor. On this one, Steph tries to get around the hedge, and notice how Franz is only worried about playing the drive. Jimmy isn't a threat to hit the three, so they're comfortable leaving him open. When GP2 checked in, it was the same thing, and they adjusted by having him spot up on the wing instead of the corner. That way, when Steph draws two and gets rid of the ball, it's an easy passing angle to Draymond, but he isn't a good enough passer to make that read, so they end up getting a tough look from the corner. So their bigger adjustment was to instead have that non-shooting wing screen for the ball, and in those situations the Magic were going to switch instead of hedging. There were a few possessions early on though where they botched the coverage. KCP's thinking a hedge is coming, but Cole Anthony's in a position to switch, which leaves GP2 wide open on a roll to the basket. A couple minutes later, it happened again. Anthony's looking to switch, KCP stays on the ball, and nobody goes with Payton as he's left wide open under the basket. Even when the switch is executed properly though, it's really risky. If that second defender doesn't jump out early, he's got enough room to pull the trigger from three. And if that second defender does jump out early, taking away the jumper, now he's able to turn the corner and attack a more favorable matchup in isolation. In the second quarter, they came up with two more adjustments though. Instead of starting the play with a high pick and roll, they had Podziemski set a down screen for the screener to keep the big man from staying attached. Remember, they're looking to hedge, but Goga isn't able to get above the three-point line in time, and Steph's left with a pull-up three. Their other adjustment was to simply play with more speed and attack in transition, where Steph's as dangerous as anyone. Not only does pace force the defense into a scramble, it often leads to cross matches. This time Steph has Wendell Carter on him, so they clear out for him to play one-on-one. The only problem is that when he got these favorable matchups or looked to attack in isolation, that defender could just press way up on the three ball to run him off the line, then help would load up early in the paint to force the ball out of his hands, and nobody on the Warriors could make them pay. Outside of Steph, Golden State shot 3 of 16 or 18.8% from three in the first half. And as a result, they found themselves in a big deficit, with this jumper from Wendell Carter putting the Magic up 17. That score wouldn't last long though, as Steph heaves it from nearly 60 feet out and hits nothing but the net, cutting the lead down to 14 at the break. In that first half, the Warriors went to 4 or 5 different adjustments to Orlando's defense, and with Steph's brilliance, he had himself an incredible 17 minutes of play. By that point, he had already scored 21 points on 7 of 11 shooting and 5 of 7 from 3, and he also created plenty of open shots for the guys around him, but like I said, they just couldn't convert. So in the third, it was time for another adjustment. They started Quentin Post instead of rolling with Draymond at the 5, and that created a mismatch problem. Post is a legit 7-footer, so if the Magic wanted to switch smaller guys onto him, he could take them to the block and score. And he pairs that presence inside with some really nice outside shooting, so it's not like they had to sacrifice their spacing to get a bigger lineup on the floor. With the shooting and the interior play, Post quickly unleashed 10 points to open the third in just 3 minutes. However, their biggest adjustment came with the way they utilized Steph. Instead of having him initiate and play pick and roll, they took him off the ball and had him fly off of screens where the Magic weren't at all prepared to defend him. As I mentioned earlier, any ball screen from a big they'd hedge, and any ball screen from a wing they'd switch. It was almost like they didn't actually plan to defend Steph away from the ball though, because on those screens he consistently found himself curling into open space. Here's one where he starts under the basket, and Post is going to set a down screen at about the free throw line. Carter's playing below the screen, and for whatever reason, both Paolo and Jet Howard are sitting in Jimmy's driving lane. So when Steph catches the ball, he's basically left with a warm-up jumper. They also continued to play with pace as much as possible, so if Steph found himself pushing into the half court with space to attack one-on-one, he'd get right back to doing his thing in isolation. And by this point, he's clearly feeling it, so the Warriors are doing everything in their power to get him the ball and watch him empty the clip from deep. Naturally, that meant Orlando started to press up even higher, meeting him all the way out at half court, but that just left him with space to attack as a driver, this time stopping on a dime for a pull-up midi. It got to a point where Steph was literally doing whatever he wanted. This time he goes to work against Franz in the half court, gets by him on a drive, then when Black stunts in the paint, he uses an escape dribble to get to the elbow for a jumper. After that, it was time for a breather, so he checked out, having scored 22 points in the third quarter alone. And I should also mention that Golden State's defense really tightened up, holding the Magic to just 21 points, so not only did they now have a 5-point lead, Steph single-handedly outscored them. Then when he checked in to close out the game in the fourth, things picked up right where they left off. He was still being utilized primarily off ball, the Magic still had no idea how to cover him, and the only time they got a stop was when he finally missed. If you remember though, anytime he plays in the pick and roll or gets a handoff from a big, the Magic are gonna hedge to get the ball out of his hands. This time it leads to a great look for Quinton Post in the corner, who's unable to take advantage. But if they're gonna force Steph to get rid of the ball, he'll counter through his movement. This play starts with a very basic looking pick and roll, where Paolo steps up to the ball and Steph moves it to Post. Only, Steph's gonna immediately sprint back out to open space on the three-point line, where he's able to get to yet another triple. Then if Steph comes off a screen from Jimmy, the Magic are gonna switch, and Franz makes sure to jump out in a timely manner, but there's still the tiniest of windows, which of course is all Steph needs to do what he does best. The combination of ball handling, movement, and shooting is any defense's worst nightmare. Even when you think you have him covered at the end of the shot clock and get a great contest, it's actually an up fake into a one dribble pull-up to get him to 52 points. That one pretty much iced the game, and from there the Magic were forced to foul, which against Steph means they were forced to give up 2 points. He ended up taking and making 4 free throws during this time, getting him up to 56 on the night. This game from Steph marked just the 11th time in NBA history that a player made 12 threes, and it was the 3rd time he's done it himself. He also shot 92.5% true shooting, created plenty of open shots for teammates from start to finish, and left an elite defensive team in the Magic completely helpless, as the Warriors now move to 7-1 since trading for Jimmy Butler. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out the Hoop Venue podcast and my social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you thought of this game. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.